I've talked a lot before about people who are having trouble in relationships and the importance of going to counseling and therapy. And I've talked before about childhood trauma. And in this video, I want to present to you some of the pitfalls that can happen even when somebody is going to therapy, because I'm witnessing this firsthand in several situations. And here's what I want to say. First of all, people who have childhood trauma, whether they're abandoned by their parents, abused by their parents, alcoholic parents, it changes your brain. We know from MRI studies that certain parts of the brain are overactive, like the danger sensor part of the brain is like a barking dog, senses danger everywhere. And the prefrontal cortex, which is responsible for being aware of your sensations and what's going on, is often black and dormant and underdeveloped. So these people have brain damage. Okay, this is not controversial. This is known. You got to study neurobiology and trauma research. The good news is that you can bring these parts of the brain online and develop your brain normally with getting good therapy. With good therapy, I'm talking about therapy that deals with the emotional part, not talk therapy, cognitive behavioral therapy, none of that, but something deeper that EMDR can work, neuro feedback, somatic experiencing, inner child healing. You have to be able to also be comfortable with the sensations in your body, realize when you're being triggered, not react. And so for people who were abandoned as children, you guys, be very careful about getting into a relationship with someone who is very high strung, controlling, because some of the stuff doesn't come out till you get to know them better. And even if they go to therapy, because they're not a narcissist, they want it, they see that, oh my God, I'm just reacting, they can have a really hard time and never change because they manipulate the therapy process. They're so wounded and so scared of looking at themselves that they pick certain therapists that they can manipulate and control by using certain strategies, like just getting a therapist who will let them get away with just venting, or certain ways of, I don't feel safe, back off. So these clients are not making any progress, and they can spend years going to therapy and no change is happening. No change is happening. A good therapist will not engage you for more than maybe a few months, a year at the most. You should not need ongoing therapy, and there should be a lot of breakthrough changes. But I have seen people go to therapy and get nothing out of it. Now, another problem that happens in therapy is that you go to therapy to complain about your marriage, but you're going alone, and the therapist falls for all of your complaints about your wife or your husband because they never talk to the wife or the husband. So they're complicit in the manipulation. And this person is getting away with it because these traumatized people really think it's all your fault, whether they're narcissistic or not, okay? They're so triggered, all they see is you doing this and I'm upset because of you. They don't have any accountability because their brain isn't working properly, and so they can get away with it. So as a therapist, it's so important. I need to finish this video in a couple minutes, but a good therapist is not going to work with couples unless they've talked to both people. That's so a few things I've learned. You got to be able to challenge the client to be finished later. All right, so skills that a therapist needs, in my opinion, is they have to have done some kind of study in trauma work or somatic experiencing. Talk therapy alone does not work because talking is in the mind and emotions are in the body. And when people get triggered and their emotions take over, they have to be able to be with those emotions. So it's very important that a therapist has some experience with somatic experiencing, inner child work, stuff like that. Second, if someone is struggling in their relationship, a therapist needs to talk to the other partner. If one person is having a problem and coming and complaining about their spouse, a therapist is doing no favor to this client just talking to this client and believing everything the client says, because it may not be exactly that way. That's why when you have both people there, you can get both sides and find out what is their dynamic. Often, the way that one person reports it is just how they see it. So the therapist, as the neutral party, can get each of their sides and see what's really happening. Number 3, you have to be willing to challenge the client. By the way, these are all things that I've learned recently, and I didn't used to be able to take on the client. You have to be willing to take on the client and challenge them, not in a way that you're judgy or making them defensive, because if they're defensive, they're not going to take it in, but in a way that's like kind of impartial, like, I have good news and I have bad news, or I'm going to say something now. Are you ready? Or, letting somebody know that they're just a bully. You're just a bully. In those moments, you're just a bully, just like your dad. And, in a way that that you're joining them in the truth. Instead of just, I don't want to upset this client. You can't be afraid of upsetting your client. And if a client doesn't work on stuff, you got to be willing to let them go. Because why are you seeing them? Just to line your pockets with more money and see them forever and ever and not making a difference in their lives? And then this next one, which is one that I really was faced with recently myself, is you cannot, as the therapist, be more invested in the client's healing than the client is. You, as the therapist, you have to be the neutral party, like, this is what I see, I can help you, but hey, it's up to you. And I have often found myself more invested in the person seeing the light and making a change than they were. And actually, that experience that I recently had in this regard was a great insight, and is the reason I'm actually making this video. Because because we as coaches and therapists bring our own stuff to it. So if I'm trying to change you, where did that come from? Because what I was present to is me trying to change you. Not only is it ineffective, because you have to want to do the changing, but it activated me in my stomach area in a way that was reminiscent of like when I was trying to change my husband to get him to see the light. And while, it's not an evil intention, it's not my place to change people, and actually it's very upsetting to my physiology. So I can just say, this is, what would you like to get out of this? And you have to be willing to let people go. Like, I can't work with you if, I can't work with you if you're not willing, you're not coachable. You'll have to find somebody else, like having good boundaries. Also having good boundaries with clients around, when they want to reschedule or this or that, because the therapist can be an understanding, can be a stand-in for the proper parenting that they never had. But I think the most important thing is finding somebody who is also has done the work themselves. So I don't believe in taking medications for anxiety or depression or any of that stuff. There might be a few people who need very extreme cases, but they're handing them out like freaking candy. And if a therapist herself is on medication and trying to get you to take medication, that means she doesn't know how to live a life without it. How can she help you with something she hasn't struggled with through herself? Now, I have never experienced trauma of this kind that's described in the course, so maybe I wouldn't be a good person to help people with that. I don't know, but I find it all very interesting. It's just that there's so many bad therapists out there, and I just remember there's a really good lady on YouTube, the Crappy Childhood Fairy, who helps people with their childhood PTSD because she herself healed herself from it. And she went to a lot of therapy, and she talks about how for many years she would go see her therapist, and she would talk about, her childhood trauma, and she would always feel worse after and get very dysregulated. And that's because talking about it can just activate it. Like, it wasn't good therapy. Fortunately, now we have a lot more research that's been done. But you know what Bessel van der Kolk said in that online class I took today, is that the NIH has funded very little of this research in trauma. And he thought it was unfortunate, but I'm thinking we just send, billions of dollars all the time, every day overseas to fight wars, but we can't spend a few million to do research on trauma when so many people are struggling with it. It's because the freaking drug companies don't want you to solve your trauma, because if you learn how to heal your trauma, you won't need their medications, and your incidence of diseases is going to go way down. So there's no money in that. There's no money for these companies when people get better. So why the fuck should they research it? That's the problem. That's the problem. But it's apparent to me. So in the last week, I've coached a few people that didn't really want my coaching. They were open to receiving it, but they didn't make any changes. They didn't make any changes. And I gave them brilliant insights. As a matter of fact, what I really like to do, instead of being like a coach for people, I want to be more like a consultant. Because I can talk to you for an hour or two, and I can find out exactly why you're this way, and I can give you like an analysis and what you have to do. That's fun for me. It's like the problem solving and getting to the root of it. Sometimes working with the people and their stuff is fun too, but I like figuring out what is the thing that got you to this place where you're so struggling in your relationship or in your life, and helping you see it, because that also can be very healing for people. There's nothing wrong with you. This is just because of what happened to you or what you learned. And that's very insightful, because I made a lot of changes in my own life just based on seeing that. But I don't know, because a lot of people don't want to freaking change. I even had somebody contact me off my Psychology Today ad on Sunday. Somebody wanted couples counseling for himself and his wife. They've been married for many years. They've got children. And I replied to him the same day, because he said they wanted to start sooner rather than later. And I'm like, I know what it's like to be struggling in your relationship. Let me get back to him. I offered him free couples counseling. I'm advertised at $250 an hour, so he probably could afford it. But I was like, you would be my first couples clients, and I'm willing to do it for free. Never heard from the guy again. Never heard from the guy. He probably found someone else, or maybe he didn't want to do it, or maybe he didn't like the offer it free. I might change my Psychology Today ad to take free people. I don't know. I have to think about it. Or just tell people that I'll help you troubleshoot your problem, and then you can go to your own local therapist, because some of those people are in such despair. They can't see why they're in the situation that they're in, or they just need some simple tools. But the point is, in the last week, I've come across several cases of people who are having a problem. I offer to help them. In a few cases, I actually told them, brought them to a realization, or pointed out where this came from, like deep stuff. And they're like, huh, and still going on with their lives as if I had done nothing at all. Now, this is not a reflection on me. This is a reflection on the fact that a lot of people don't want to change. I think people have to be in a lot of pain to change. And that's why Terry Real talks about leverage. The way that people change in their relationships, if their partner is about to leave and they don't want that partner to leave, sometimes they don't give a shit. Like my ex-husband, he was like, I can't deal with my stuff. You're going to leave. I'm going to be upset, but I can't deal with what you're asking of me. You got to just leave then if you're going to leave. That happens, but sometimes that will be a point at which people will go to counseling. They don't want their partner to leave. Or they see that they're having rage attacks and it's negatively influencing their kids, and they want to be a better parent than they were parented. They don't want to continue the legacy, and they see that they're continuing the legacy. So sometimes I think like good therapy can wake up the client, but ultimately the leverage comes from the spouse. The therapist has no leverage. And I think that's where I went wrong, is thinking that I could say the right thing to get a person to change, because I assumed that everyone wants to grow and everyone wants to change the way that I do. But in the two of the cases I'm thinking about where the person has not made any changes at all, is because their partner isn't leaving. The partner is not leaving. The partner is still there. So they have no incentive to make a change. They don't care that, they have this addiction issue or this anger issue or this control issue or this pain. They don't care. They're willing to live with it. They lived with it this long, and their partner is still there, so why change? I think what I'm getting out of this for myself, my monologue, is I'm only going to take on clients. I might still take them on for one session because I love finding out like what's their issue, because it's very insightful for me because I learn. But I will only work with people that are really on the brink of divorce. Like Terry Real only works with couples on the brink of divorce, because that's how you have leverage. Because other than that, people are not going to fucking change. He also doesn't take on anyone that has an addiction or an ongoing affair or a serious mental health issue. But they have to be on the brink of divorce, because that's how there's some leverage for the people to want to change. That's probably why he does it, because I'm realizing that I realized this in 1 week with just a few people that, and I bet that guy that emailed me, I bet that his wife wasn't ready to leave him. So he didn't really give a shit about following up. That could be a reason. A lot of people are so comfortable in their pain. They've been with it this long, and they think they're right, or they're just so dissociated, or they're like afraid to just take it on. I don't know, but here's the thing, you guys. If there's an area in your life that's not working, there are resources out there to help you get your life working again. And there's free information on YouTube. However, if you have been abandoned as a child, and at least one of your parents was not in your life, and at least one of your parents was abusive to you, or alcoholic, or depressed, I recommend that you find a good trauma therapist and just go for a few months and do some inner child healing work, learn how to calm your emotions, learn how to love yourself, learn how to be there with yourself, because otherwise your relationship is going to be shit. These people that have been abandoned make terrible partners. Terrible partners. And they pick people who can be manipulated. And these people who are manipulated are silently angry and act out behind the person's back, or or they get fed up and leave. Well, there could be other options. But I find human behavior very interesting, actually, you guys. I find it very interesting. But I don't really want to do a lot of coaching with people. I kind of like figuring out what their problem is. Like detective work. Like I like doing the detective work. That's what is fun for me. But it's really hard to find clients because a lot of people don't want to change. I'm gonna just stick with people who are desperate for change, desperate. And I can tell you that when I was right before the last 3 years of my marriage, I was in so much pain. I was desperate and I didn't know where to go for help. And when I told the two therapists that I did go to that I was in so much emotional pain, one of them tried to give me Xanax, and the other one said, I don't know what to tell you to do. So, and that was in 2012, 2011, 2012. Hopefully we've made more progress. But I'm telling you, look for someone who's trained in trauma, who isn't afraid of you, who is kind, and who will take you on. That's, and someone with some good standards and boundaries. That's my recommendation. And if you want to work with me, you can work with me. I'm happy to troubleshoot people. Also, here's what I want to offer. If you have a problem that you want me to read on the air, send me an email. I'll put it in the description, my email. Send me a letter. It can be anonymous. I will read your letter and give you advice in a video. Or I may email you and ask you some follow-up questions and do like an analysis live, which would be super fun. Because I want to know, like, how did you grow up? How were you treated? Like a lot of that kind of stuff. And then I can pinpoint why you have the problems that you do. So, anyway, thank you for watching my video.